my time playing Dead by Daylight so far, I've seen so many newer survivors making so many of the same mistakes. I decided to make a video on them and help them fix them going forward. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. We just hit 200 subscribers and now on the road to 250, so I would really appreciate it if you guys could subscribe. So here are 27 mistakes that newer survivors make and how to fix them. And if you fix the last mistake, I promise you, you will become so much better of a survivor, so make sure you stick around for that. Wasting time. Never waste time. There is little time that is had before the killer will be on a survivor, so making the most of that time is essential in ensuring you and your teammates escape the trial. So always be contributing to helping your team, whether that is in the form of doing a generator, saving a teammate from the hook, healing an injured survivor, cleansing a doll or hex totem, or even just running the killer. All of these things are great ways of helping your team and pushing the game in you and your team's favor of survival. Lack of faith in yourself. The fog can be a pretty scary place when you're first starting out, but knowing the killer is just another player like you and me makes it less scary. Don't be afraid to do an objective in the same area, so when you see the killer is busy chasing another survivor, insert yourself on an objective and take advantage of the time the killer is busy. Because if you freak out being indecisive, running around leaving scratch marks everywhere, the killer might end up just thinking you're an easier target and come after you instead, and you don't want that. Protect your teammates at the hook. When going for save when a killer is camping, the survivor being rescued should use their endurance status effect once they're unhooked to get in between the killer and the survivor who saved them. The Michaela in this clip did just that. Instead of trading hooks with the Sable, both survivors were able to get out of danger. I've seen way too many times where the survivor on the hook gets rescued and they just take off without protecting the survivor who just saved them. It's better to have to mend than having to make a healthy survivor injured. It will also minimize the effect it will have on generators, especially if the killer is running a perk like Thanatophobia. Don't waste pallets. You only get a certain number of pallets per match, so you need to make good choices on when to use them. The worst time to use a pallet is when you get hit by the killer and you drop a pallet right away thinking you're creating distance or separation from the killer. But instead, use the speed burst you get from being hit and completely leave the area and head to another safe loop in case the killer follows you. This way you'll also save a pallet from being broken and you gain a lot of distance, and you get to have that pallet available for you or a teammate later on in the match. Wasting the killer's time. This is one of my favorite things to do in Dead by Daylight. No, not that. Well, yeah, that, but I'm talking about wasting the killer's time. I see so many survivors dropping pallets as soon as they approach them, or camping them and dropping them when the killer gets somewhat close to them. The objective for the survivor that has the killer chasing them is to waste their time for as long as they can, so camping pallets and just dropping them earlier doesn't do anything besides having the killer break the pallet and having one less pallet to waste the killer's time with. So instead, loop that pallet a good 2 or 3 times before dropping it, making the killer have to work for that pallet to break it. That will give your team more time to finish generators and get the exit gates open to escape. Leave early, don't stay late. The 2 most important objectives in DBD are completing generators and escaping out the exit gates. We all know that, but there's a time to know when to stay on the gen and push it to finish it, and there's a time to just leave and come back to it when it's safe and the killer isn't going to injure or down you. Good rule of thumb is, if the gen isn't close at all to being done, healthy or not, just leave the area and come back to it when you know the killer has left the area and it's safe to start working on it again. There's no point in giving the killer a free hit and a potential free hook. That can just shift the game into the killer's favor, because then you're having survivors who are working on gens having to leave the gens to go and make a save, potentially putting them in danger of being hooked, all the while gens aren't being progressed and the killer is just getting kills. So keep a close ear on the terror radius and be thinking how close the killer is, so you know if you should commit to finishing the generator or not. If the generator is close to being finished, commit to it and finish it, especially if you're healthy. You'll have enough time to get the gen done and take a hit. There's no point in leaving the gen when you can just commit to it and get it done. Being greedy with your hooks. Doing this can be a big mistake. Think of it this way. If somebody's on death hook, is it better to just let them die or give up one of your hooks and trade with them to keep them in the match? Here's another question for you. Do you think it's better to let a teammate go into the struggle phase and get their second hook? Both of these answers are a no. If you have no hook or one hook, you should definitely trade one of yours to save somebody from dying on hook or from going into the second hook or the struggle phase. You need your teammates. If you aren't willing to trade create a hook state to save them, then you'll be down a teammate and will most likely lose the game. Same as if your teammate is on first hook going into second. It's better to give up one of your hook states and save them from going into their second. This way your whole team has a better chance of surviving longer and escaping the trial. You have nothing to worry about if the killer is camping. You have 2 hits, so you won't go down before you can make the save. Now that being said, you can do this still if you are injured. You just have to do it while the killer isn't camping, or if they are, just do it very stealthily so you can get in quick enough to make the save. But just make sure you do it before you get downed, because then the survivor on the hook is either going to die or go into the struggle phase and you're going to be in the dying state. Winning requires altruistic behaviors, and saving a teammate from the hook is one of the best ways you can do this. So don't be greedy with your hooks and be willing to trade 1 for 1. An even better way to prevent hooks from happening is to take hits as a team. Body block the killer from the hook so they can't hook your teammate. It's all about being a team and showing that altruism. The longer your team lasts together, the better chances you and your team will escape together. Not having a full loadout. Time and time again I see this happening. Players going into matches with near empty loadouts. Fill them up. It's worth it to have any item and any offering, and any add-ons. You have so many items and add-ons in your inventory and offerings, so just fill up your loadout with them. And even more important and very much worth it is having all 4 perk slots filled. It just gives you a better chance of winning and not being sacrificed to the entity. Leveling up faster in the Blood Web. We know there's a huge grind in Dead by Daylight to get blood points, but you can level up faster and get to Prestige 100 with your characters by doing one simple thing in the Blood Web with your points. That's spending your points on cheaper things rather than just clicking on the automatic purchase button in the middle of the web. By doing this, you'll save points by not buying the expensive things you don't use or other less expensive things you don't need as much. By doing this, you'll be saving more points and going through webs faster, and you'll prestige faster too. But you should also make sure you purchase perks before anything else. The endgame save. I see a lot of survivors going to go for the save, but when they get to the hook, they freeze up and they don't know what to do. This is a very simple strategy. One player goes in, they take a hit, while another player makes a save, and then the healthy survivor protects them from behind on the way to the exit gate. So Rebecca makes a save and gets hit and has no protection. As the killer is fast approaching behind Rebecca, they then attack her. Luckily for Rebecca, she had dead hard, or she would have been downed. Ace and Sable did end up showing up right near the end, and they escaped. So don't be scared to get involved in an endgame save. It's easier than you think. Not helping your team. Not helping your team progress the game and doing nothing is the absolute worst thing you could do to your team. And I have to be honest, if you're gonna play this way, then why play the game at all? You for sure should not just be running around doing nothing, hiding on the edge of the map, or hiding in a locker. Doing this will just play into the hands of the killer. You should always be doing something, like being on a generator, healing a survivor, running the killer, or some sort of action that is helping push the game in the favor of your team. Be aware of the 3-gen. This one is really easy. Just be aware of the generators you're doing throughout the match, and be sure not to leave yourself at the end of the game with the 3 last gens close together. If you do this, you're giving the killer a really good chance of finding you more often and getting you on the hook. But if you make sure to finish repairing generators that are spread out, you'll force the killer to have to cover more ground around the map, thus giving you more time to finish that last gen and escape. Always be altruistic. If you can take a hit and sabotage a hook to prevent a teammate from being hooked, go for it. If a teammate is injured and you're able to, take a hit for them. Or even if a survivor is being carried, take a hit to help them hopefully wiggle free from the killer. Of course, do this only if you're healthy or have dead hard. There can only be one. Make sure you bring 1 exhaustion perk, because if you don't, you're not giving yourself the best chance to keep the chase going, and it'll be harder to outrun the killer and make them give up on you and go after somebody else. Also, make sure you only equip 1 exhaustion perk, because if you equip 2, you can end up wasting a perk slot, because when you go to use one, the other one won't work because you'll be exhausted. It's safe until it's not. When it comes to unhooking a survivor and healing them on hook, I have 2 trains of thought on this. Only heal on hook if the killer is busy chasing another survivor. If they're not busy chasing another survivor, then they're most likely going to be coming back to the hook to catch survivors healing. So go somewhere safe and heal there, because if you don't, you might find yourself right back on the hook. Checkpoints. This is one of the most important things to watch for when you're running the killer at any tile, a TNL wall, a jungle gym, and especially at Killer Shack. Keeping your checkpoints lined up, you can always have a very good vantage point of the killer's red stain and in which direction they are coming from to attack you. This will not only keep you alive longer, you will also be keeping the killer busy longer and in turn giving your teammates more time to get objectives done and escape out the exit gate. Know the enemy. There are two sides to Dead by Daylight, so as a survivor, if you really want to get better, then you have to play killer. I have friends that don't play killer and it hurts their survivor game. By playing killer, you're learning what you're going up against when you step into the trials. You get an understanding of how their powers work, how their add-ons work, and you'll be so much better prepared when you face off against them. I know playing killer can be hard at first, but you do get used to it. Just gotta practice a little and play around with your add-ons and what perks you like that fit your playstyle the best. But once you figure that out, you'll be having a much better understanding of how they work, and you'll be able to have a better game plan when you face those killers. Get busy. Now this one I learned from playing killer. There is no point in crouching around or walking in the beginning of the match. You spawn across the map away from the killer, so you don't need to worry about leaving scratch marks anywhere. So get running to a generator and get busy repairing it. Watch your back. So many times I see survivors looking straight ahead without looking behind them while they're in chase. It costs them losing health state after health state. All you have to do is look behind you while you're in chase, so you know where the killer is by seeing their red stain, and this will help you know how you should be reacting. This can be the difference in having your chase run much longer or end abruptly. I know it can be stressful because you think you might run into something and get stuck and the killer will gain on you and get a hit or a down, but trust me, over time you will get better and better, and it will be second nature for you, and you'll be doing it without even knowing it, and your chases will be lasting much longer than they used to. Loadout. When it comes to choosing a loadout, I like to make sure I get 4 bases covered to help me and my team have the best chances of winning. So I go with 4 categories that would help that: chase, information, healing, and generators. For this, I would choose perks like Lithe, Kindred, Will Make It, and Deja Vu. Lithe to help me extend the chase and get out of trouble. Kindred to help the rest of the team know where the killer is after a survivor has been hooked. This is a great one, especially if you're in solo queue with no communication. Will Make It to get 100% healing speed after unhooking a survivor, with this effect lasting for 90 seconds. And Deja Vu to give me aura reading ability to help me know where gens are, but more importantly to keep the 3 gens split up, and it also gives you a 6% repair speed to repairing generators. Another bonus of this build, 3 of the 4 perks I've listed work after the last gen's completed, which is a big bonus. You always want good balance so you can cover different aspects of the game. Flashlight saves. So to pull off a successful flashlight save, what I like to do is wait until the pickup animation is over and then aim my beam at the middle of the killer's chest. Pallet saves. Just like flashlight saves, you have to wait until the killer's pickup animation of the survivor is finished and then drop the pallet. Stay out of the way. When you see a player's busy looping the killer, the best thing you can do is just stay out of the way and go and do an objective. The killer's being kept busy, so at that point, your job is just to get gens done. As you can see in this clip, getting in the way just messes things up, and the survivor ends up getting hit twice and goes down. All this does is stop the loop from happening, while at the same time stops the killer's time from being wasted, and the killer gets a hook out of it. The survivor who interferes in the loop might be trying to help, but look at it this way. The survivor who was already looping the killer had no problems doing so, and a gen could have been done in the meantime. Communication. So these are some of the ways you can communicate with your teammates. I rarely see it at all. Body language is a great way of knowing what your team is thinking, and it's a tool that should be utilized way more often than it is. Cleansing totems. There's a lot of people who are in the opinion of not cleansing totems because it just wastes time that could be better spent doing gens. Now that's a valid opinion, but at any point, the killer could have equipped a hex perk that can be activated if totems aren't cleansed. A Noed, a Devourer of Hope, or hex perks that are already activated when you come into the match, like Blood Favor, Ruin, or Undying. So in my opinion, it's a big mistake to not cleanse those totems every chance you get, because if you don't, you could very well be regretting it later on in the match. Gatekeeper. When it's time to open the exit gate, this is one that I see survivors not doing, but should be doing. If they did, the gates would be open more often and more escapes would be happening. When the killer is coming to stop the gate from being open, it's a very smart play for one survivor to stand in between the other survivor who's opening the door and the killer trying to stop the survivor opening it. Doing this only when you're healthy, but it gives more time for your teammate to open the door for your team to escape. Farming your teammates. When you know you're dealing with a tunneling killer, the last thing you want to do is farm your teammate off the hook, because you know there's a very good chance the killer is just going to run them down and put them right back on the hook again. So to avoid this, whether a killer is tunneling or not, just wait till the killer has left the area before making a save. Otherwise, you're going to be down a teammate pretty quick in the match going forward. DTK. Don't trust killers. I see this all the time with newer survivors. For some reason, they think that if you act friendly with the killer, that the killer will act friendly with them. This is not the case, unless the killer is trying to farm, which is very rare these days. A lot of players will use this tactic of pretending to be nice to lure the survivor in, and then when they are close enough, they will attack, just like I did in this clip here playing Michael Myers. The worst killer to try and become friends with is Michael Myers, because of his tier 3 one-hit down power. So again, do not trust killers. Don't be toxic. The last mistake to avoid as a new survivor is very simple. I've been playing Dead by Daylight for thousands of hours, and I see some sort of toxic behavior in almost every single match. The biggest form I see is players killing themselves on hook, or just running to the killer to get themselves killed. This just kills the fun and gives Dead by Daylight a toxic reputation. Playing this way doesn't do anybody any good. It hurts your teammates' chances of winning. Even worse though, it just ends up giving you a disconnection penalty and gets worse every time you do. So let's make the community more positive and less toxic. So those are my 27 mistakes I see newer survivors making in Dead by Daylight. Hopefully this video helped you, and if it did, please go hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to the channel. I do have a new Discord if you would like to join it. It's on my profile here on YouTube. Alright, that's all for this video. I'll catch you in the next one.